The Fractal design Meshify S2 has definitely taken inspiration from Fractal's other offerings, most notably the Define S2. There are also several models being released. There is a black model with no window if that's your thing, but in this day and age when you've got a whole host of customizable options on the market to make your case look awesome, you're probably going to go for the tempered glass option for sure. Now they also come in black and white, and I definitely favour the sharp look of the diamond pattern black front and white chassis, which we were kindly sent by Fractal Design. So the Fractal Design Meshify S2, it's a decent enough case, but with our build it wasn't without some pain. But we are not really sure who and what to blame for the one hassle that we did have with the S2. Now worst things first is we should just get them out of the way quickly. The motherboard I/O shield was so hard to fit, and the standoffs didn't quite match the motherboard holes. Now, was this the fault in manufacturer with the Fractal, or with my Asus Prime Z370A2 motherboard? Now, we'll never know, but I've never had such an awkward time doing the most basic job. One of the standoffs is a locating pin, and I had to remove that in the end to help with the alignment of the actual motherboard inside of the case. But to be honest with you, that's pretty much it for faults. The rest of the build was actually super smooth, just like all of the edges of this case. So many times have I pulled my hands out of a case only to nick the skin on a sharp edge and then bleed over everything, but that didn't actually happen here. There's nothing like that here. The S2 is the big brother of the C, which perhaps stands for compact. The Meshify part of the name comes from the stealth bomb style mesh on the front and top panels that allow loads and loads of airflow. This is pretty fragile too, the actual mesh on the front, so do be careful when lifting it, as we found that it dented slightly if picked up in the wrong place. It popped back into position though, but do be warned. Now one tip I do have is remove the full length bottom filter first. Somewhat annoying with that front cover is the power button reset and LEDs and everything else there that were fitted to the top edge of the actual panel. So when it came to installing the 240mm radiator from Corsair, like you can see that we've got in here at the moment, I had to prop up the front panel. I actually had to prop it up because it was essentially still connected to the main case by all the wiring. Now fitting these switches and lights to the steel part of the case would have made life so much easier. Not a deal breaker, but it was just a little bit awkward and rather odd, as Fractal Design has done exactly that on another case in the Meshify family. I'm wondering if they've had a bit of feedback in the past or they've realised their mistake and they've decided to put kind of the front interface on the actual metal part rather than this removable plastic rim. Now a fantastic feature that generally does come with the more pristine looking cases on the market is a power supply shroud. Now I absolutely love these, and they hide so many cables. The power supply is held in place by one of those rear adapters that you fit to the PSU first, and then you screw it all into place. Handy when you have forgotten to fit a SATA lead to your semi-modular PSU and need to just slacken it off and get your hands inside. Exactly like we did. I put an NVMe drive, M.2 NVMe drive in here, and I needed to put my standard mechanical hard drives into the back as well, and we didn't have enough SATA, so we didn't want to take everything apart, so we just undid kind of the screw tacks on the back, slightly slid out the power supply because it's connected to a bracket, and then we were able to get that SATA cable into the actual power supply without having to pull everything out and unplugging everything. As I just said, we used an M.2 hard drive directly onto the motherboard, but there are 3 cages, if you will, for more traditional SSDs and traditional mechanical hard drives, hidden on the back and held in place with thumb screws. Take one off, fit your 3.5 hard drive with the supplied screws and dampening grommets, and screw the cage back into place. Now do watch for orientation if you plan to use the right angled SATA plugs at this end. Also, you can take the SSD drive cages out of the back of the case and you can actually install them into the front if you did want to display your case. Now there are 3 140mm fans included. There are 2 at the front and 1 on the rear, but finding the end of the front ones is really quite a pain as they're all tucked away with the cables for the actual front connections. We mounted the front fans to the radiator as there is so much empty space in this front section as we weren't interested in water cooling, so that area of the case remains dark. We used a set of LL120 RGB fans from Corsair around the rest on the top and the back, as you can see, to illuminate the actual setup, and the effect I think does work quite well. The top of the case also has a mesh panel and pops off at the push of a button, which can be located on the rear of the case. Now replacing that mesh panel just means pushing it down until it clicks back into place. It's a pretty simple system. Now the actual fitment holes of the fans up there are kind of off center, which is great if you're wanting to put a radiator at the top as well. I haven't on this build, but if you're wanting to put a radiator onto the top with the fans as well, the actual fitment holes pulls it as far away as possible from the actual motherboard, so you should not have any clearance options. I have seen builds on YouTube where they have stuck a radiator in the front and on top as well. You shouldn't have any issues with clearance. I certainly didn't with the fans, and putting a 240 radiator in there is going to be possible as well with enough clearance from those RAM sticks. So with my build here, there is now a big chunk of empty space between the motherboard and the front filter panel, which provides room for a full water cooling system with a number of spaces to be able to mount a decent sized pump. Or if you've got a monster graphics card for your build, then there is enough space to compensate and still provide some wonderful airflow. Now, one annoyance is the fact that there is a bracket at the back to vertically mount your graphics card. As you can, I'm not sure if you can see on the video, but it's down here, so you can vertically mount the graphics card, but there was no adapter included in the box. Now, I would have really liked to have utilized that for the front, but there was no adapter, so I wasn't given one. Missed out. The tempered glass side and back cover snap on and off a white bodied case with black interior, but there are thumb screws to really secure it, which we found we needed on the back, especially as we introduced custom sleeved white cables into the build. Now the space for cable management isn't the best for such a chunky case, but there are some Velcro straps that you can use to tighten your cables to the actual case itself and keep them as flush as possible. Now the pass-through grommets are rubber and subtle. Now the smaller pass-throughs, especially at the bottom here, you just haven't got any rubber protection on there, but that was fine. That was not an issue with that. Now, once we were using several SATA connections for the Corsair RGB node, several hard drives, and even the gross ketchup and mustard 24-pin motherboard cable, then space in the back did become a little sparse. As you can see, I've used custom white cable sleeve extensions on there. Now inside the back is an included fan hub, again, which needs powering with a SATA as well as connecting to a fan header on the motherboard, and room for two 2.5-inch drives, which can also be brought around to the front and be shown off in the window. Now, why anyone would show off their hard drive in that space is another question, as most SSDs can be quite boring, especially my Crucial drives, which are silver with a blue label. It's pretty boring design, so I've left them in the back. In closing, I would have another minor moan, and that this case is fairly heavy, but it is substantially built with a quality feel, costing around the £140 mark in time of writing this script. I would have one if I had a big enough desk though. It's so pretty, putting the Fractal Design Meshify S2 case on the floor would just be wrong. So thank you very much for checking out our review of the Fractal Design Meshify S2 case. If you enjoyed this review, then do click that like button. Please do subscribe to keep up with all of our latest tech and gaming videos, and also let us know in the comments below what you think about the Meshify S2 from Fractal Design, whether you would have something like this or you haven't just got the space for it. Or if you've done a water cooling build, let us know how easy or difficult it was putting the water cooling stuff in there. I'd really like to know, because I'm not the biggest expert of PC building, so I would definitely like to know how you got on with your builds. As I say, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.